You're listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. I'm your co-host, Aaron McAtee. Our other co-host, you may have seen him walking out of a great clips with a big old smile on his face. You've probably seen him at a dirt track. He is the one, the only, Scott Bowie. How's it
Hello,
going, Scott?
Aaron. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. So this is our 2021 Indy 500 recap show. We have a great guest, actually a member from the Meyer Shank racing team that was part of Helio's crew. And he is I believe, the tire guy.
Yeah, he's a tire guy, and he's a huge fan of motorsports to begin with. Scott has been around auto racing for a very long time. I got to know him actually because he was a UPS man, and when I had my business, he would come in and deliver packages. And
I realize that.
And one of these days, we're going to have him back, and we're going to let
Absolutely.
him tell. We can really start telling some stories, and Scott's got them. But we tried to stay as much focused on the 500 as we could in speaking with him. So, yeah, he's going to be a really great guest. And how about that 500, right?
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you where you sat during the race, but by looking at you, I can rule it down to either the second turn, third turn, or fourth turn, because you have a nice suntan on your nose right now.
Oh, I think it's called a burn.
Burn. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. So we know you definitely were not on the front stretch on the outside of the track.
Well, I have a really nice little I wouldn't say it's a private area because there's a couple thousand people sitting around me, but it's how I like to do things. It's pretty low key, and our buddy Chin and Robin and I for the last 3-4 years have went to the race, and we have a great parking spot, and we're kind of in and out pretty quick, although we did not leave quickly after this when we had to stay for the celebration.
Oh, absolutely.
It's man, just what a day. Auto racing is kind of funny, especially a long auto race, because they do get to a point when they start stretching out, and of course it's a 200 lap race, 500 miles. You're not going to run hard in the first, 250 miles, 350 miles. If you can't win it in the beginning, but boy, you can sure lose it.
Right, and I would be, if I was a driver, I'd be very hesitant. Like, I was excited for Rinus VK. I really like Rinus VK. He's a great. I mean, he's probably one of the nicest drivers in the paddock. Always super cool. Great driver. And I was excited when he was leading in the front. But you have to realize it's a long race, and I would like to see the stats on how many times a driver who led the first 10 laps actually won the race.
Wow, that's a great question. I don't know what that stat would be, but it'd
probably be very question.
It'd probably be very surprising, right?
Yeah. So I don't think I would want, and kind of in hindsight looking back, I mean, I think Helio, he could have probably easily led half that race, but I think he's well aware of kind of what we were just talking about, and he knew, he needed to kind of lay back, and I think he was able to conserve fuel and some other stuff by doing that.
Yeah, he was pretty smart. When did he start? He started. Did he start 7th? Is that where he started?
I know he's
something
in the
like
top,
that.
Yeah, I think third row. I believe
he started.
So, yeah.
I think he started inside the third row, which would be 7th. Quickly got up to 5th. Stayed 5th, 6th for a long time, and then all of a sudden he was in 4th. And
right.
And that was after maybe 25 laps, something like that. All of a sudden, he decided he was going to pick up a couple spots, and from that point on, I don't know what the farthest he ever dropped back was, but it wasn't much farther than that. Even cycling through pit stops, and like David Land called it, before when we did our pre-race show, he had been the most consistent car all month, and he sure was the most consistent car on race day. And it was a very impressive win. And if anybody watches the replay, I forget what group of laps it is, but if you watch the replay, you'll see him behind Alex. And if you watch the throttle tracker, he's running half throttle. He'd make a run on him, then just settle in, run half throttle. And before they get to the corner, he'd run flat out. and he was starting to set up Alex a minimum. I forget how many laps they ran together. I'll say 50 laps. I could be more, could be less, but and he was starting to set him up from that point.
Right. And as I mentioned, when we were talking to our guest Scott here in a little bit when we play it, I listened to an interview with Michael Shank, and Michael Shank was even like, I don't know what Elio's doing right now. Like, why is he doing this? And that just shows like how smart Elio is and how well he knows that track, and how well he knows the strategy. I mean, that's, and when it came down to lap 150, like I would have loved to see Alex win, but I
me
just
too.
knew. I mean, when it comes down to someone with that much experience, in just knowing, I mean, there's people that just know how to run that track. Elio's definitely one of them. Dan Weldon, another one. I mean, you look how many times that guy finished second. Even like Roberto Guerrero, who obviously never won the race, but he finished second like 3 or 4 times.
Right.
I mean, there's some people just know how to run it.
Yeah, and it was pretty apparent that Palou was going to have to find. All right, I apologize if I'm butchering his last name, but Alex was going to have to find something that he wasn't showing if he was going to continue to stay in front of Helio. But that being said, a lot of great stories in that race. Connor Daly.
Yeah.
Man, and I know that some people will say, well, that was Connor's luck to have that tire hit him like that. Well, it didn't take him out of the race.
Fell out of the sky. As he said,
and it did.
Fell out of the sky.
And he's right, and it did. But the thing it didn't do is it didn't take him out of the race. It hurt his chances to win because that wing was so damaged, that nose cone was so damaged, it couldn't split. It could not go through the air properly. And why they didn't change that under that yellow?
I was wondering that.
I'm not sure why. I guarantee you there's a reason. I just don't know what it is.
And maybe it takes too long. I mean, do you know how long it takes to take a wing off?
Well, see, they got that camera in there now, and you got to unhook the camera and hook it back up. And I've seen that take some time before. Maybe they're afraid of losing a lap. I don't know. Without talking to somebody in that situation, I'm not sure what happened. But I will say this: so it didn't take him out of the race. He was still able to finish. And you can look at Ian glass as half empty or half full, but I would take that as half full if I'm Connor, because he got to finish, and he got to prove how strong he was during the race. And Connor's a guy that unfortunately can be fast all month, and people like me are going to say, well, I don't know on race day. Well, maybe people like me should stop looking at Connor that way and start taking him a little more serious, because I actually did turn to Robin at one point in the race and say to her, hey, this may be Connor's day. And of course the tire hit him. I mean, like within 5 laps of that, but it sure started looking like, hey, this might be Connor's day.
And Graham, I mean, obviously got caught up in that same deal, but he was someone, and you said this during the podcast, he's been there, and I was like, Scott may be right. And a lot of people were saying that, on his strategy, he would have been up there.
Well, I didn't realize they had figured it out to where they were going to have to make one less stop than everybody else.
Oh, wow.
And that's why he was so upset, because he knew that they had with that stop, they were going to have to make one less stop than everybody else the rest of the race. If I heard them correctly. If I didn't, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure that's what they said. And I believe that's why he was just so devastated, on top of the fact that he was running good all day and had a wheel come off. And I know people are crucifying that tire guy.
Oh, man.
And I don't know what happened. I can honestly tell you I don't know why they just didn't freak out on the radio immediately, trying to either get him to stop or slow down or something, because they knew it was loose. That guy knew that was loose, and some other people on the team had to know too, because the nut come out of the gun, picks the nut up, he puts the nut on, goes to pick up the gun, drops the gun, and when he dropped the gun,
he had to know.
When he dropped the gun, that was really what really hurt him, because as he got the gun on the nut, the car was starting to leave the pits. So I don't know. And then he kind of fell forward. Like as the car took off, he kind of falls forward or sideways toward the car. And I mean, he had to be just a devastated person
Oh, I bet.
because you know what's coming.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I just, I mean, what a tough break, man. And that kind of opens up the window on pit stops, right? Like, and I, again, without talking to anybody who had intimate knowledge of what was happening, it was so strange to have so many brake failures. So for anybody who doesn't understand, you have carbon brakes, carbon, and the pads I believe are carbon, or they're made specifically for carbon brakes.
Mm-hmm.
Carbon brakes, you have to get up to temperature for them to have any. Because they instantly cool off. A carbon rotor will instantly cool off, and so you have to get temperature in them for them to work. So it's always been what I've always been told is you got to drag the brakes a little bit to get temperature in them before you get on the pit road. Well, every one of the drivers who spun, and Ryan Hunter-Reay, who didn't spin but had a exciting trip down pit lane, they all said the pedal went to the floor. Well, people would think, okay, then it just didn't have any brakes. Well,
Right.
typically the reason why a pedal would go to the floor is because you've overheated the brakes and you've got air in the system and you've got to pump it up. Well, that's not going to be the situation there, because you're never touching the brakes on a super speedway unless you have a dramatic moment. You're never touching the brakes. And so the only thing that I wondered is because they're mounted on what's called a floating mount. And I wonder if when they mount these, they're mounting them with what would be called a little kickback,
Mm-hmm.
where it runs out of, it just barely runs out of, it doesn't run true plane. It runs a little bit out, and with the object of kicking the pads back. So once they kick the pads back, they're not touching the rotor, and you're not getting any friction. And I don't know if that's the case or not. That's the only thing that really came to my mind. To have a pedal go to the floor, they would have had to, in my thought process, had to kick the pads back to where the pistons have moved the fluid away from the caliper, and now you've got to pump it to get fluid back, to get pressure back to the calipers.
Right. I know there was someone who got a penalty for speeding in the pits. I want to say, was it Hunter-Reay? I want to say it was Hunter-Reay.
He came in a million mile an hour.
So was that due to the brakes?
He said the pedal went to the floor.
Right. Okay.
And that was pretty terrifying, because Dee Silvestro was on pit road, and she was toward that back there, and he was trying to miss cars. And I'm not saying it was close, but I'm telling you, as a pit crew member, that would have started getting your heart beating a little bit, seeing that car coming. But that to me was very odd. And then you had Will Power, who come in. Essentially, the car was dead on the pace lap, and they had to recycle everything to get to start. And then you had 3 cars affected. I guess it was just 3 cars affected by the yellow for the first. Was Stephen Wilson he said the pedal went to the floor, and then the rear brakes locked up, and it turned him into the fence. He spins on pit road, and which causes yellow, which causes Dixon, Rossi, and Harvey, that I know of, to be stuck out with the pits closed, and they had to come in emergency stop.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I could figure out, and I haven't heard anybody say this, is that Dixon's car and Rossi's car died as they ran out of fuel, and they couldn't get them to restart.
Right.
And if you notice, it almost looked like they took it looked to me, and again, I don't know anything about these cars, like they took a plate off the right side of the car and they had a plastic tube that looked like they were doing something maybe in the fuel line or something like that to maybe try to purge air out of it to get it to start. So it'll start pulling fuel through the system. So, and again, there may be some out there listening who's like, no, you fool. This is what happened. I know exactly what happened. And that's cool. That's just without knowing the facts of what happened. That's what it looked like to me. Like for some reason, it vapor locks or it wasn't pulling air. It had a lock in the system with air and it wasn't pulling fuel through. So, which, I mean, two of the race favorites, right? I mean, right. Which really changed the complexion of that entire race because they were essentially both done at that point.
Going back a little bit to that, the willpower deal before the race even started, me and my dad were talking about that, and we have like a scanner so we can listen to the crew and stuff talk, and they just seem too calm. Like, my dad was like, I wonder if they did that on purpose just to, save fuel.
Maybe, boy, I wouldn't think you would have it come in dead like that.
Right.
I can see you come in and maybe top it off. I don't know. I just can't see where you have to restart it because they had to hook the cable back up. They had, if you watch the video board, they put the cable inside the car to recycle the what I assume would be the brain of the system, which you see this happen, from time to time with those cars.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I have no idea what happened, but that seems to me the more likely scenario. Like it just had some sort of glitch, they're running like Windows 95 in that thing and they had to just do a hard reset or something. But, so at that point it changes the complexion of the race. But Helio Castroneves, like we talked about, was always there from that point. And you did have Connor Daly, who was extremely strong. And you had Alex, who did a great job running up front. Once he got to the front, he stayed up front. VK, I thought would be a little stronger, kind of faded. Herta, same way. I really felt from those early laps that Herta would be somebody to really contend with, and they must have lost the balance somewhere, or maybe a pit stop caught him out, or something of that nature. The other car that had a speeding penalty was Scott McLaughlin.
Oh yeah.
He had a speeding penalty too. But something lost in all with Helio winning and the 4-time, and everybody was so excited. When you watch that race again, and I didn't see this, Robin pointed this out to me, how fast Simon Pagenaud was those last 2 laps.
Oh man, it makes me wonder, and hopefully someday we'll be able to ask him this, but it really makes me wonder, like how many more laps it would have took him for him to be up there.
He'd have been on Helio that lap because Helio was in traffic. They were running too wide in front of Helio. Which I realized was last lap, but they still had to make another lap. The cars in front of him had to still make another lap to finish the race. So they're running too wide. Helio crosses line, Alex crosses line, and Simon is on the inside of him passing as they come across the line. Simon runs third. He passes Pato on the back straightaway. I mean, going into 3 and just drives by him like he's tied to a stump.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's on Alex. And man, I think another lap, you're either going to have one of the damnedest crashes you ever saw, or you may have been looking at a 3-time winner who's ran second 4 times, and then another 2-time winner. Because Simon,
his car was on rails.
At the end of that race, man, he was absolutely on rails. So that was lost on me when I first watched the race live. But watching it later on in the highlights and on the replay I mean, if anybody hadn't watch his last couple of laps, and he is absolutely coming. And I remember looking at the finish, and I'm like, how in the hell did Pagano run third?
Yeah.
And until I saw it. But how about Sage Karam run seventh?
He's done that. He's had a couple good runs in Indy, right? I
Yeah.
think was it last year or the year before? I think he had another top 10.
Yeah.
Just think what he would do, in a Penske car, Ganassi car.
It's so weird. He did drive for Chip, and it was
Did he? Yeah, but
yeah.
it wasn't a full. I mean, it was like a partnership with Ganassi, wasn't it? Or was it a full?
I thought it was a Ganassi. Though I could be wrong. I don't. I'm not perfect on all that stuff, so I could be wrong. But um, I don't know, man. Of course, unfortunately, he was involved in that situation with Justin Wilson, and maybe that played on it a little bit too. It's tough for a young man. He's not very old. Today, he's not very old.
Right.
So, who knows? I don't want to speak for somebody, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's had some great finishes there. And Ferrucci had a great finish, and really didn't hear about him all day.
He's finished like 6th, 4th, and 5th or something. I mean, he's had
Yeah.
some. I mean, all of his finishes at Indy have been really good. And like we're talking about people just know how to run good at Indy, and I think Santino's definitely one of those. Sage, I think, is one of those.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was there any big surprises to you, good or bad?
For me, I think the biggest one was VK. I really thought he was going to be there at the end. I mean, he was just.
I did too.
I mean,
Yeah.
he was strong all month. And we saw during qualifying how quick he was. And well, I think another one that, and I don't even know if we haven't really even mentioned this name once, Scott Dixon.
Yeah, we just talked about when he had the problem in the pits.
Right. And
Um,
he just kind of, and I think part of it, I think they were saying like he just didn't really have a fast race car. He had a fast qualifying car.
yeah, which was another thing Dave Land was talking about when we did that show, and he said the other drivers don't think he has a fast race car, and I mean, I guess you got to agree with that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, again, he was looking at being fifth in the points at one point in that race,
Mm-hmm.
and with Alex get double points race. Well, lucky for Scott, a guy who's not run the full season wins the race, and Alex runs second. Instead of Alex having this gigantic lead on him, he's only 35 points up. Now Scott's going to have to really. 35 points is a lot of points, but
Hey, there's a reason why they call him the Iceman.
yeah, I mean, again, you can look at glasses either half full or half empty, and I think if you're Ganassi, you walk out of there thinking, "Whew, we dodged a big bullet today." At least for the 9 team, where the 10 team's thinking, "Man, we missed a heck of a chance today." I mean,
Oh yeah,
so
no, for sure.
um, man, yeah. So that's going to be a really interesting fight because I don't think Alex is done winning this year.
No, absolutely not.
And I don't think Scott's done winning this year either. So
Nope.
at some point, this first time winner streak is going to come to an end this year, and you're going to see somebody run off a couple races, and it may be Newgarden, or maybe McLaughlin. Maybe a Penske car.
Yeah. I'd love to see Scott get his first win.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I got news for people. This year was all new. Speedway was all new to him. Well, next year won't be. And next year, and I think he found a groove at the end of that race that he fell into. And he was pretty quick too at the end of the race. He wasn't Simon Pagenaud quick, but he was quick. And I think next year for him, it's going to be pretty interesting. I think next year's race is going to be pretty interesting. Is this the last year for the cars as they are, or did they push that back to next year?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I'm terrible with the new rules packages and that. I need to look at that. At some point, they're going to start having new rules roll in, and I think they were even doing some testing with the hybrid system at one point over there. I don't know if it was this month or when it was, but I think they've done some testing with that
Yeah,
hybrid
no, they
system.
definitely have. I've definitely heard they've done some.
So, which may throw a whole new mix in the game.
Oh, absolutely. And
Depending on how it is, but boy, race wise, I heard some crazy number. I didn't realize they had so many passes throughout the pack.
yeah, I didn't. And it was like pretty early on in the race, and there was a really high number. I forget what that number was, but it was a very high number.
I mean, I think that throughout the pack racing, there was over 200 passes for position.
Yeah, no, that number sounds about right.
And I just didn't, for some reason, that went right over my head until I heard that stat on Monday.
And there's another thing I heard, and I could be wrong. I forget where I heard this, but it was the fastest 500 ever.
Yeah, 2 cautions, and that one had a crazy amount of yellow flag laps. I don't know why it had so many yellow flag laps, but it did.
Oh yeah, in the pits, yeah, that was kind of weird. But and I think it kind of it shows like just how good the field is now and how competitive it is. Because I mean, there was only like a handful of cars that didn't finish the race, which is unbelievable.
Right. I mean, Rossi stayed out there and ran as hard as he could run, and I don't think he ever got his lap back, did he?
I don't think so.
If he did, it was,
And he may have been one of those cars that was kind of gambling to hope for a caution there at the end. Because I know there's a couple cars and I don't remember exactly who they were, but there were a couple cars. If there would have been a caution, 10 laps to go, whatever, there very well could have been a different winner.
Yeah. Well, I know Rosenquist was one.
Right. Yep.
And then I forget who the other one was that was running up front with Rosenquist, but something interesting that really happened. Rosenquist, as Alex pulled up on Rosenquist pulls into pits. After he'd already made that pit stop, he goes through the pits. I don't know if he stopped or if he just went through the pits. And I found that to be, if he did that just to be a gentleman racer, so the leaders could fight it out, that's pretty unheard of today.
Right, I did not realize that. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so if you watch it, he pits, and then he comes back out and he blends in, and before they catch that large pack of cars, they actually catch, I'm pretty sure it's Rosenquist, and Rosenquist drops off and goes through the pits. And I don't remember if he stopped, like maybe he had another issue, or if he just drove through the pits so he wouldn't be part of the fight in the end.
Yeah, that's unheard of. If that was the case, I've never heard of anyone.
Because I saw, because if you watch it, Palou starts getting a giant draft he gets a giant toe off of Rosenquist. I'm positive Rosenquist. And I thought, well, that's the race. I don't think Helio's going to be able to draft up, because essentially he's the third car in line at that point. And the deeper you go in the pack, the harder it is to pull out and pass.
Absolutely.
And I thought, well, that might be the race. And then turns out whoever that car was comes in, and then he and Alex actually then run down that giant pack of cars. The first time they'd really run in traffic all day. That was really, to my knowledge, the first time they really even caught lap traffic all day.
Yeah.
And the thing about it was, at that point, you're thinking, well, Helio's got this because he's in that position now.
Right, but I tell you what, that last lap when he started coming in up on that, and it wasn't. I'm not going to compare it to like the J.R. Hildebrand situation, but whenever there's someone leading like that and it's the last lap and you're coming up on lap traffic, I mean, it's got to be right. And that had to be a lot more stressful based on the fact that Palou was right there behind him, so It wasn't a situation. If he was a half lap ahead or whatever, I'm sure the team would have said slow down, don't pass the cars, you're fine.
Yeah.
But
he had to run as hard as he could.
Right. But then again, it's Helio Castroneves, and he's not going to make that mistake.
Right.
This is the bottom line.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching 2011 today, not long before the show. For whatever reason, I'm not even sure why I even turned it on. Was watching the end of the race, and man, I feel as bad for J.R. Hildebrand today as I did then. I guess if you want to look at if you are believing fate and and there's always a grand plan. You look back at today, Dan gets his last win, and then unfortunately he's gone by the end of the year. So, that'd be as somebody at JR spot, you always want to win the race. That's how you're programmed to be. But for somebody like myself, there would be a place too where it'd be like, well, maybe it was just that was meant to be,
Right. Everything happens for a reason, even if you don't understand what that reason is right away.
Right. So it was such a crazy moment.
Oh man, yeah.
And he caught him in such a weird way, and he didn't. I don't know, man. You go back and watch it. It's such an odd. The whole sequence is just odd because the nose just kind of takes off, and he never really backpedals. But he backpedals before he gets to Charlie, which I think took the air off the front wings to begin with, possibly. Because you see his car kind of bobble as he's coming up on Charlie, and and I remember Charlie caught some hell in that deal too, and he's just out there driving. I mean, he didn't do anything.
No,
he never moved off. He never moved off the white line. He didn't do anything. I mean, it's the leader's job to pass the lap car.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
It's not the lap car's job to do anything other than hold their line. So, but man, what a celebration after that race, huh?
Yeah, and
it's truly what to me it's one of the greatest moments ever at IMS.
Oh, absolutely. Just there's a lot of passion there. Small team, and there's that photo we were talking about with Michael Shank standing on the pit wall when Helio's coming by, and that kind of sums it up right there. That photo is worth 1,000 words for sure. And Scott Gager will talk a lot about that as we interview.
Yeah, and some we didn't talk about with Scott, and some I went to mention. I thought it was really great when in the interview Michael made sure that they acknowledged that his wife was a part of that too, because it's easy to stand there and in the moment it's really not that big a deal, right? On the surface, but I think that gives you a little deeper insight to what kind of guy he probably is, to make sure that everybody's acknowledged. And his wife, I'm sure, has put up with a lot. Whatever sacrifices he's making, she's making.
Right.
Because you're an absolute team.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and she may be heavily involved in that day to day, and I just don't realize it. So, I'm sure she, no matter what, she's a huge part of that team. And I just thought it was really great that he acknowledged his wife when they were giving him all the accolades for winning the race.
Oh, absolutely. It makes me remember, and I'll tell this quick story before we jump right into talking with Scott. But I volunteered at Fan Force United back in I think it was 2011, 2012. And at that point, I was looking at possibly getting into racing, and I remember one of the crew members called me over to his toolbox, and he's like, "You see this picture right here? It's a picture of a lady that was his wife and his kid." And he was like, "Yeah, I got a divorce because of racing. You don't want to do this." And that's a story,
and it's an old story,
I'll never
man.
forget. Right.
I've got a brother who's had 3 marriages,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously racing was not the entire reason, but unfortunately, people don't understand what it's like until you're actually doing it.
Oh, right, right.
What looks maybe glamorous when you're dating isn't glamorous when you're married, or something to that effect. And that works for men and women too. I'm sure there's female crew members who have the exact same problems.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't want to make it one sex over the other. It's just it's a hard life, and I feel for that guy, because not everybody's cut out to do it. They think they are, but it's like anything. It's like having a small business or anything that you're passionate about. There's got to be a lot of sacrifices made to make these things happen. So.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think without any further ado, we'll go ahead and chat with Scott Gager.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to be a phone-in call. This will be the first phone-in call. So if anybody's expecting a video of Scott talking, he won't be in there. But it is an amazing call with truly one of the great characters that I know in auto racing, and a really good guy. And we hope you enjoy it.
And if you're listening on one of the podcast streaming platforms, obviously you don't see a video. But I just wanted to say, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any place where podcasts can be found. We're most likely there. So we appreciate all the support so far. Like I said, just give us a follow and enjoy the podcast. And we definitely have some exciting ones coming up soon.
I couldn't agree more. And thank you for everybody who's watched so far or listened so far. We're going to get better at this. I'm going to get better at this. But we've just had some great guests, and I just want to thank everybody out there.
Absolutely. It's been a blast.
I actually went to Ray Haroon's gravesite in Anderson and put my 500 old-timer hat on his grave and said, "Listen, Ray, I need some help winning this race." And then I went to Roger Ward Jr. I was born in 1959, the year his dad won, and I asked if I could wear his dad's ring. I'd be honored. And the rest is history.
Oh, man, how great is that? Hey, join us on the phone, 3-time Indianapolis 500 winning crew member, Scott Gager. Hey, Scott, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing tonight?
Great.
Fantastic.
Oh, man. So, what a month, right?
Absolutely. It was just, I really felt for Roger Penske last year, and it couldn't have been a better script than what happened yesterday. Or was that Sunday? I can't even remember where I'm at anymore. Sunday.
Sunday. So, I agree with that. We actually talked about that on the show. As bad as you can feel for a billionaire, I felt bad for Roger Penske, because he spends all this money, he then does all this work, and he doesn't get to show it off to anybody. And at least this year, the world got to see what he's been working on.
Absolutely.
And he got a 4-time winner. He got one of his guys. I think Foyt's the only one that did not win a 500. Only one of the 4-time winners who did not win a 500 driving for Roger.
Correct.
What a great, what a great day. I was, as a fan, I was just really excited to see how it all turned out.
Well, I told Helio in Victory Lane, I said, you were Peyton Manning and you were Tom Brady. You switched teams and you beat the others. And he goes, "Yeah, I am." So I kind of rubbed off on him a lot of times. I kind of was a bad influence at times. So it was pretty cool.
Did you teach him how to run?
No, he's got a lot of spring in that step, man. And I just envy him, because that's the way I used to be wired for sound. But no, he's got a lot of spring in that step, most definitely.
Did you climb the fence with him?
I got out there and I saw all those people. I go, no, I'm going to fall off and kill myself and embarrass myself. So I stood back and watched. But when we were in Victory Lane, I did take one of the milk bottles and I went to the edge of Victory Lane and people went nuts. I go, this is what it's all about. went down when they told us to go to the Yard of Brick, and I went up to the fence and I go, fans, this is for you. And they are all taking pictures and going crazy. And then they start screaming at me, climb the fence. And it's like, I didn't have my step stool to get on the wall. It's too high. But it was fun. It was, I mean, to be able to be in the middle of all that, pretty darn cool. Very, very humbled by it.
Yeah, and speaking of, and I say this in no way to make fun of whoever this was. I really felt bad for one of your teammates who fell running out there to the fence.
That was my best friend.
I felt bad for him. They were kind of killing him on social media. Austin Cindric had that alternate angle of all that and showed that guy falling down.
Oh my goodness!
And he looked like he fell hard.
He did. His hand was bloodied because I offered my glove to him because his hand was so cut up. His knee was, and his elbow was pretty bloodied up. But hey, it was the heat in the moment. He goes, "I'm still going up that fence."
Oh, great for him, man.
Yeah.
I just, for myself, I just, what a sacred place for me personally, Victory Lane is. I won't go into Victory Lane at Speedway. When I take the tours and that, I won't go into it because I never earned it. I don't deserve it. Stuff like that means a lot to me. I won't touch someone else's baby Borg. I won't. I don't do any photos with the trophy, Borg Warner trophy, just because that, to me, in auto racing, that is the highest honors you can have. And
Absolutely.
I respect everything that you guys accomplished. So, man, hats off to you.
One thing is, I get a lot of praise for being on the winning, but it's like it's a team. I'm just a speck on that team, but I know what it means, and I know the way each guy or gal on a team, how hard they work. Everyone is different. Everyone's got a different personality, but the whole outright goal is to win. And one thing about the Meyer Shank team that is very impressive, yes, they are focused, but each one of those guys, they thank you during the day. They tell you they love you. You don't get guys telling you that, but that's, win or lose, that's just their attitudes. And it makes you really feel good when they sincerely mean that, because that's just the way they're brought up and that's their life. And when Michael Shank talks to us, and I know this from Dick Simon because he was a heck of a promoter, that you have to act like you are a car owner just like him, and you have to do everything the way it's supposed to be done to win this race, because it's not easy and very few get to win it. And it was very emotional to see Michael Shank get off that scoring stand. He got down in the pits and he got on his knees and was praying. And I go, that was just absolutely awesome. He looked at me and goes, did you think this could happen within 5 years? And I go, yes, because you have to believe.
Right. Wow. That's very powerful. And there's going to be that great photo, and I haven't seen a better angle of it yet, but hopefully someone's got a great angle of Michael getting up on the fence as Helio's coming down the front straightaway to stop the car to climb on the fence. But, he's got his arms raised. And, I don't know Mike Shank at all on any level. I've heard him speak a lot. And as someone who's been around racing for a very long time, I feel that Mike Shank is what is a true definition of a racer.
Absolutely.
That's always been he is a racer's racer. He doesn't, he doesn't buy it. He earns it. He earns everything he gets.
Right.
Yep. And I know last year it's like, why can't we win this race? And it just, little words like that are big, because it makes you work harder. When I look at that driver, no matter what job I do, if it's filling the refrigerator or doing tires or setting up the pits, whatever. I act like I'm the driver in that car, and my life depends on it, and my team depends on it, no matter what I do. And so that gives you confidence in what you're doing, and you always work as a team, no matter what questions. Nothing's a dumb question. You communicate with each other, and that's what makes it good.
I agree. You know, I have this saying I say all the time is I always want to be the weakest link in whatever team I'm involved in because I feel like if I'm the weakest link, we're really good. And meaning that especially when it comes to auto racing, I take it very serious.
Sure.
And you know, I try to approach it exactly as you were talking about. I feel a huge amount of responsibility anytime I'm around those cars and working on them, and just like you said, and that's I mean that's why you've gotten so many good jobs and why you're such an asset to have around. So I as someone who's been around sport or been into team sports, I really appreciate that attitude.
Well, Matt Swan, the chief mechanic for Helio, he goes, listen, I got to have you on my team. You're my good luck charm. You're the peanut butter in between our bread. And it's like, you got to talk to these guys. And I always have something to say, but it's like, hey, you're the main man. He goes, no, we all are. And he goes, I know that with you on our team, you can get us to where we're going. And that's really makes you feel warm and fuzzy that a man that now has won the 500 5 times as a crew member, crew chief, that he has that much respect for you, and it's very humbling. Even last night, that the Indianapolis Motor Speedway had a victory dinner like never before, and it was just the winning team on the yard of bricks. And he goes, I want you to sit by me. And I felt very special to be able to do that. And like I said, I'm just a speck within the team, the way I look at it, just a piece of the puzzle. But it's nice to be respected and have people talk that way to you.
And we don't have enough time to do it all tonight, but we would like to have you back in the future. And you're such a colorful guy, and you're a very interesting guy. And you're one of the biggest fans of the sport I know. And so, to kind of really, really, truly get into your journey into the sport. But tonight, we're talking more about the race that happened. And one thing I wanted to ask you, how did you get hooked up with Shank? I mean, you've been hooked up with Shank now for, what'd you say, 3 years?
Well, I actually been with them when they ran with Andretti back in 2017. I was with them also. And we all worked out of the same tire barn, so to speak. But Mike Smith that I worked with Dick Simon, he was friends with one of their tire guys, and they needed help. And so he goes, hey, I got the guy for you. And that's how it all worked out. And I know where Mike Shank came, where he actually bought a car, and then they wouldn't give him an engine deal.
That's right.
And so he had to sell the car for less than what he paid for it. So Sunday was redemption. I mean, he worked so hard, and his family worked so hard. And I always plug Sirius XM because they're one of the involved with the car ownership. Liberty Media that owns Formula One, so they're involved, and I always plug that for them. Please support our sponsors, and it's still through June 8th is free Sirius XM on your radio. So anyway,
great.
Yes, it is. And I told Jim Meyer yesterday, because he had just retired. He was the CEO of Sirius. I go, you realize our car just won on Sirius XM, the sponsor? And he's like, it did. I go, yeah, so you need to plug that too.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and and I didn't know that story. I didn't realize that he actually lived in Indianapolis and commuted to New York.
Yes, yep. He flew up there on the airplane all the time, but yeah, he's a one gun ho kind of dude for the team. But I'm just blessed to even be in any capacity with the race team, because usually it's young guns anymore, and And I'm an older guy, but I always said, my job was like doing 16-hour pit stop in the past. I go try that because a lot of guys are like, "Aren't you a little too old to do this?" And it's like you couldn't do my job, the one I had.
That's right.
Anyway.
Oh yeah, we'll get into that next time we have you on.
Okay.
We'll get into all
Sounds
that.
Great. All right.
So, give us an idea. I mean, and we actually did a race preview show, and I thought about asking you on for that, and I thought, man, he's been working so hard this month. I don't want to bother him right now. But one thing I really wanted for people to, just general layman fans, what is race morning like? Like, what time do you start? What is that like?
I was actually there at 2:30 a.m., but usually I go in at 12 a.m. I very rarely sleep. Where I grew up on the west side, Bob Shank's airport, the planes started coming in at 1:30. We had our windows open, no air conditioning, so I was always awake as a kid. So that actually was, since I was 6 years old, that was my 56th 500.
Wow.
And so, and it's still, when I get there and I walk in, it's just the adrenaline's unbelievable. And I always tell everyone the goosebumps that you get are the people that have passed through those gates from the past. And there's a lot of friends, a lot of family. My dad was at the 1933 race, and our former neighbor Louis Meyer was the winner of that race. And my dad had to sneak in because he couldn't afford to get in. He didn't have the money. But it's just when you get there, it's like hurry up and wait. Like this year, we got in there, and the engineers wanted all the tires purged, so we had to take 18 sets, 9 per car, let the gas out and repurge them and set them to the pressures they wanted for the race. And so you just start loading the pit cart. You start going out and getting everything ready out there in the pits. And they had breakfast. The Andretti's did, but for us. But no, I just skipped that and ate a protein bar because of just focus. I could care less about eating or anything. It's just, you just stay focused within your pit, is what I told some of the new guys. You don't look at anything else except your surroundings, where everything is. Be prepared for anything. They fire up that car early, and that's when you really get the excitement. You start bouncing around then because it's race day, and all eyes are on Indianapolis. And I always said that when they ran Monaco the same day as Indy, we're setting up and we peek in the garage and watch them in Monaco. Well, when they're done, Monaco looks at us. And this year, with it being the biggest gathering since the pandemic, all eyes were on Indianapolis. I said, let's make it shine. So I think Sunday, Indianapolis really did shine. And Castroneves is a very loved person by the fans, and with his Dancing with the Stars, winning there, he was on a mission. And Matt Swan, chief mechanic, said, "We got a hot rod. This car's fast." Castroneves is saying, "Don't touch it. It's a rocket ship." And he told Palou at the awards dinner beforehand, he says, "I was not going to finish second again. I finished 3 times, and I was not going to finish second again this day." And which you'll have your time, buddy. This one's mine. So when I walked out of there yesterday, I had my hand up 5 times. I'm like, hey, let's do it again. Let's be the first 5-time winner.
Well, I tell you, we had a race preview show, like I said, and we all did a pick, and David Land picked you guys because of your consistency through the month and all that, and which he was spot on. You guys your Helio had been so consistent all month. And then, I listened to his interviews, and I texted Aaron before the race on Sunday. We have a group text, Aaron and his dad. And I said, Helio firmly believes he's winning this race today. You could see it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it wasn't boasting. It wasn't anything else. It was a belief that he was going to walk away the winner on Sunday.
Yep. And Jack, not to take away from Jack, but what hurt him was they took forever to get Wilson's car out of the pits when it turned around, and that messed him up when the pits were closed and had to come in and fuel, and that was just the start of the downfall. So, which actually helped Helio because I guess Dixon and
Rossi
had the problem too, and that's just you got to refigure a lot of things. But this was one of I'm not the car owner, but if I was Michael Andretti, I would have told all my team to run together the whole day. You got 8 cars out there with Shanks. Run together, swap the lead, save your fuel. How much extra fuel you'd have in your car if you were with your teammates saving and then come in. But that was my strategy. So
I watched
being there forever, you get a lot of ideas.
I watched at some point during the race, and the lap number escapes me, but Helio's chasing Alex, and I'm watching. They got the throttle traces and all that on the big screen, and I'm watching Helio just do real short runs at him, and then all of a sudden he's at half throttle, and he's just drafting. And then right before he gets to the corner, he goes full throttle, so he doesn't scrub a bunch of speed. And it's full throttle across the short chute, through the next corner, drafts up on him, and just sits there at half throttle. And I told Robin then, I said, man, this guy's fast. I mean, he's just figuring out what Alex has. And this race car is a absolute rocket ship because he can pull up on him anytime he wants.
Where I live here in Scienceville, I got a Honda engineer that lives right across from my condo, and I haven't seen him since because I make him nervous. But I said, listen, if we don't have a bullet on race day, your truck's going to be up on blocks. I'm taking the wheels, dude. And I still haven't seen him, but I want to thank him for the bullet we got.
Well, you had a good one.
Yeah, yes, indeed, brother.
I was listening to an interview with Michael Shank. I think it was yesterday. I know we all got the days mixed up, but the thing Michael was saying was, I think he said around lap 120, 130, he was like, why is Helio doing this? And then he realized, 20 or 30 laps later, he's doing this on purpose. And he's probably talking about what Scott was just talking about with letting up on the gas.
Right. And I've talked to a lot of spotters, and they tell me that guy knows every inch of that track proper, and that's got to be because of Rick Mears, because Rick would work on his car up to the 400-mile marker usually, and then let it rip after that. And
a pass I didn't see until watching replay was when he passed Daly going down the back straightaway, and it was a dominant pass because Daly kind of broke his run, and Helio was able to get out just a little further and just drive by him. And if I'd seen that pass when it happened, I would have, right then made up my mind that Helio's winning the race. It was demonstrative. There was that because it isn't like Daly was slow. Daly would been super fast at that point.
Oh yeah, that Chevy had a lot of horsepower.
He was super fast at that point, and Helio just pulled out and just drove by him. And I thought, oh, man, that was impressive.
Yes, yeah. And I talked to his mother yesterday, Beth, and Doug Bowles, and she was hoarse as can be for screaming from him leading, I believe, 40 laps. And
47, I think, right?
47?
I think it was.
And to get dinged on the front wing like that was just a darn shame. But I remember Gary Bettenhausen with tears in his eyes when he drove for Menard, and he got dinged when he had that rocket ship for Menard, when he drove the next day and was like 4 miles an hour over the pole position in his Menard's Buick, and just it's a lot of luck also at Indy. I mean, Jack and I talked about it. You never say anything bad about this place, because I remember working with Fisher, with Jim Wright, with the Buicks, and Dennis Fisher was saying this place isn't anything. And I'm like, God, I wish you wouldn't have said that, because that day we had like 3 cars that we serviced crash and 4 blown engines, because I was going back to our Penske rental truck, pushing engines over to the team to build them back up. And it's like, man, you don't say anything about this place.
No, I agree. I hold that place in as high reverence as I possibly can at all times. Yeah, my brother worked for Menard that year. We actually had a long discussion about that month just 2 weeks ago, and just unfortunately he didn't get to experience the enjoyment that you did. You know what I'm saying? It's just how it is. It's just how that place is.
Yes, it is.
It hurts as many feelings as it makes good feelings. I mean, that doesn't sound good, but it can really, it really. I think when they say it chooses its winners, it's hard to argue against that.
Right. I have lunch a lot of times with Robin Miller, Lee Kunzman, Merle Bettenhausen, Bill Vukovich II, and I look at those guys and the hell they went through, and they never got the opportunity. The Bettenhausen family never got the opportunity to win Indy, and there was a little pinhole in Gary's car that year driving for Penske, and he had a lap on Mark Donahue, or close to it, in 72, and for the engine to seize up, they were losing water, and just a pinhole, an aluminum tank that I believe the weld gave way, and it's just, I think of those guys, how good they all were, and they never got to experience it. And some people do, and some people don't. But it's like I always said that it's too bad that they didn't get the chance to experience it, because it would have been great for the Bettenhausen family. And
unfortunately, I've always said this: Gary Bettenhausen will forever be one of the most underrated race car driver there probably will ever be. Because he just didn't put his name on that trophy, and people just do not understand how great of a race car driver Gary is. He could, the little bit I was around him, I obviously he's an older generation. I know that he could really aggravate people as well, but I don't think it was ever like in a bad way. It was just, he was just could be kind of an aggravating person, but I think he did it a lot of times because he cared so much.
Sure. And I look at Lloyd Ruby, I look at Dan Gurney right there, guys like that were so great. And I mean, I looked at Gurney. His face wasn't on the Borg Warner, but in 1988, I worked with Jim Wright with Buick, and every day he'd come out and stand behind me, and he goes, "I know you're the only one who's going to tell me the truth on how fast these cars are going," because I was using the radar gun before all the telemetry, and I'm like, Dan Gurney's standing behind me, and I can't believe this, because I was in awe. The movie stars are fake; these guys are real. Just like Paul Newman stood with me in '85. We were butted up, and he'd stand out there. We didn't talk about movies; we talked about racing, and that's all he cared about. He just wished he was a younger man when he started, because he was so passionate about it. And I was so hoping that Mario could have won for him to be in victory lane, because he so deserved that, and unfortunately it never happened.
Yeah, again, that guy was a racer's racer. He would, for the people who don't know it, he would go rent sprint cars from Corey Kruseman's school and take his team, or take like Christian Fittipaldi or those guys at the time. They'd go run go practice sprint cars or whatever he could get in and drive.
Sure.
And I know guys like Parnelli held him in extreme high esteem for his driving abilities. Yeah, like you said, he would have been There's a guy that in his day, I mean, as a young man, if he had pursued auto racing, who knows,
Right,
right?
right. I had to tell you a story though that Robin Miller and he went to lunch. They were down in Phoenix. They went to a place and went to lunch, and Robin said that Newman was wearing a pair of painter's pants and a T-shirt, and he goes, "I forgot my wallet back at the track." And Robin's like, "Yeah, right. You sound like a car owner." And he goes, "No, really, I did." He goes, "I'll buy you lunch." So they get up there, and the guy goes, "Hey, is that who I think it is?" And he goes, "Well, who do you think it is?" He goes, "Paul Newman." He goes, "Oh, hell no, he's a painter back at the racetrack." And Robin said that Newman would call him. "I still think that's funny that you told that guy I was a painter."
Oh, that's funny.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's really, truly what he really wanted to be, right? I mean, he wanted to be just an average guy.
Yes, indeed.
And unfortunately for him, the way he had to make his money was standing in front of a camera, saying lines and being good looking, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
that was his lot in life. 99% of the people in this world would take it, right?
That's true. That's very, very true. Just like Dempsey.
Yep, I was about to say that.
He's the same way because we butted up a lot of times when I worked on the sports car teams, and that's all he really wanted to do was drive race cars.
So what's it like? So you've won the race, right? And we've danced on the wall, and the pace cars went around in one of the most epic pace car rides in history, and they get back, and at what point do you say, well, I got to start breaking down the pit? I mean, at what point does that reality come to, hey, we still got a job to do here? And
Right. Well, you just go back to do the grunt work and start tearing everything down, and every time like the wheels would come off the car, you take them back and immediately Firestone break them down and either put them out front or put them in a room, and you run back there with the wheel cart and start stacking them up. And but it's nice when everyone comes up and congratulates you, and that's very humbling, and there's no bad feelings because I've known a lot of guys for a long time on those teams, and it's very nice for them to say that, because I always say, "Hey, fast guys," when they're fast out on the track, or when they qualify up front. "Hey, fast guys, why don't you give us some of that power you have?" But no, I reflect. There's so many times on Sunday that I was around people, and I reflect on, I was a lucky kid to live in a neighborhood that was drivers, mechanics, officials, guards, or TV personalities, and they used to sneak me in Gasoline Alley, and I was scared to death. And, "Hey, kid, clean this part, wax this," whatever there was to do, and they'd sneak me through bare alignment. But I reflected on all that, riding my bicycle with my best friend Brian over there during the winter, and sitting in standee wishing there was a car on the track, eating like cinnamon reeds, like the lifesavers, and trying to keep warm, freezing to death, and wishing there was a car, and it all full circle. And even though I'm an old timer, I've been on winning teams, I still reflect all the way back being a fan. And I give little kids the valve caps off and said, "Hey, this will make your bike go faster. These are Helios, or these are Scotty Braytons, or these are Jack Harveys." And you try to make a fan, kind of like after a sprint car race when they put the kid in the sprint car. That's making a fan. And so I always reflect that I'm still a fan no matter what, because I know how they feel, and they just want to be a part of it in some way. And so it's just full circle for me constantly, my attitude. People go, "Well, you won the 500, don't change." And it's like, no, I'm just a fan still, guys. I'm not going to change. It's humbling and honoring even be able to be on a winning team. And but it's still you're still down to earth with everyone else. Like I always tell everyone, I'm dirt on the earth. You just walk on me. So that's as high as I get. So
Right. So for you on Sunday during the race, when did you actually realize like Helio has a good shot at winning this thing?
my girlfriend was in the stands and she was walking in circles, and I'm looking at her and she's freaking out and her niece is freaking out, and I look up there and they look down at me and they're shaking their heads and stuff, and I just pointed to my finger. I'm getting another ring. And because Elio was on a mission, I know the
Right.
chief mechanic said that that car was a rocket ship, and I know from his experience, and this is with not even being able to see what was going on, just hear the screaming of the crowd and stuff. I go, this guy's on a mission to do this, and I honestly, I this is really tough, but I had COVID back last November. They gave me 12 hours to live. And I knew Elio was driving for our team. Honestly, guys, I envisioned all this happening. When I was sitting in that chair for 9 days with all the tubes in me, and I envisioned, honest to God, all this stuff that was going to happen. I told my girlfriend, when we win, I'm going to take you to the victory dinner. I will be in victory lane. And I just felt it was a mission. And before it even started, I just had that feeling. And sometimes those feelings come true, and it did. It did. And it was tough. And that's another thing. When I'm working out there, I kept on thinking, it's not hot out here. Just think of what you felt like back in that hospital trying to breathe. And so anyway, it all worked out. It worked out well.
Absolutely. And yeah, I would definitely say about lap 150, I just knew that Palou just didn't have a chance. And like I heard Michael Shank said during the interview yesterday, I mean, Alex is a great driver, and I mean, he's probably going to win a 500 eventually, and he's going to win a
Sure.
lot of races. But when it comes down to someone with 21 years of experience and 3 Indy wins, I mean, when it comes down to that, I mean, there's not many people just stand a chance, especially when you're in
No.
that fast of a car.
Right, right. And you know what you have to do to get the job done. And like I said, still it was wonderful for Indianapolis. It was wonderful for the fans, everything. I mean, I think it really. I hear the numbers are really going to be up on NBC. I have not heard what the numbers are, but I knew a lot of people were going to tune in because this was the biggest thing going on since. So
Right.
it's great. It's great for IndyCar racing, and a lot of people, try to give me grief, and I don't care if they do or not, because it all started back in 2009 when the Indianapolis Motor Speedway asked me if I would help them promote the 100-year anniversary, so forth, 2011, 2009 through 11, and I said, sure, I'll do anything I can to help out. And they go, well, there's a lot of pictures of you on Facebook about racing. And it's like, who's going to put it out there if I don't? Have you really ever looked how many people don't put IndyCar
Right.
racing out there? And I'm just doing it because I can't tell you how many people come up to me and say that I don't know, thank you for what you do, and we purchased Sirius XM because of you. We purchased tickets because of you. And that's the whole idea. I was on the fan council, and I pushed like heck when Mr. Holman died. They made it 5 and under. When I was a kid, it was 12 and under for practice and qualifying, and I pushed real hard to bring that back, and now it's 15 and under even race day. So if we're
wow.
back to normal next year, there's 1.3 miles of viewing mounds out there. If you have one kid, or if you have 2,022 kids, they're free 15 and under on race day. You buy a ticket for the world's biggest race. It's $35 ahead of time, general admission. Take your cooler. That's your next generation of fans.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. And I remember when you were doing all that, and I told you then, I tell you today, man. I tell anybody that helps promote auto racing in general, especially IndyCar racing. I think I thank the people who do it, because for some reason it's almost like a third rail for some reason, I can't figure it out. I don't know what happened. I know we've had 2 splits and yada 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 and all that, but I can't put my finger on how it went from being so big to whatever that NASCAR run they had in the 90s through the 2000s really hurt IndyCar racing.
Absolutely.
And it's been this long grind to try to get it back to at least semi-equal footing. And the racing, and I'll tell you, in my opinion, the racing for the last, I don't know how many years, has been amazing. The personalities are so good right now. From Helio to Alex to Renus, all, from the oldest driver to the youngest driver, these guys are, these are great personalities, great people, and they just the fans have just got to somehow find out about them.
And one thing, Scotty B, that I look at also is with this the virus around the world. One thing that's extremely hurt. You look at the payout for this year's race, and I think Andretti spent more money on food for us for lunch than some of the drivers got, because with the Andretti's team, you cannot go anywhere downtown Indianapolis and be fed at a restaurant the way they feed you daily. And I don't eat that much because I can't eat in the heat. But at 6 o'clock at night, it would have been great. But it's just the way I look at that is, whatever I do, it's not about me. It's about trying to get more fans to come out there. And that's what it's about. It's about the fans. It's always, to me, always has been about the fans. And without the fans and the sponsors, there's not IndyCar racing. And even Roger, back when we did our test at the Speedway, our early test out there, he says that there's not fans, there isn't IndyCar racing. And so
I agree.
I think about all that. It's nothing about me. I am a fan, and I want more fans to come out there. And my new sister-in-law, she had never seen a race before, never seen an IndyCar before, and I even bought a family of 6 this year tickets that would never be able to go out there, and they really enjoyed themselves. And I saw John Force a couple years ago out at Raceway Park, and there was a couple with 2 kids, and they had the kids in the wagon, and they're looking in the fence, and John gets out of his car and starts talking to them. Hey, you going to come out and watch us run tomorrow? No, sir, we can't afford it. He goes, give me a moment, I'll be back. Came back and thanked each one of the family members by name and gave them the tickets to come out the next day. And that's just awesome when guys do that.
I agree, and I don't think people understand as how many guys have done and do things like that, and how many people then on the flip side of that don't take those opportunities as well. It's this weird mix. Like most guys will do something like that, but some guys are just kind of oblivious to it. It's not like they're not trying to be fan friendly. They just may not know the best way to do it.
And this kind of reminds me of, so I there was a video a couple it was when Danica was in NASCAR and she was blowing off fans trying to get her to sign stuff. And Kyle Petty said it best, whether she likes it or not, that's part of her job. Sure. Because you're representing the sponsors, and without fans, there's not going to be any sponsors, because sponsors would have no reason to sponsor a car. So whether a driver likes it or not, signing autographs is really part of their job, because they got to make their sponsors look good.
I think she was and Scott probably knows Danica way better than I ever will, but I think she was in a really odd position there, because she was about ready to lose her deal when that happened. They'd run, I think they'd already run out of real sponsorship money. Then they had the other deal that the money never come through on. And I think it's not when she spun around and told the fans, look, I'm really trying to figure out how to go fast. And I'm sorry
Right.
at this moment, and I'm not making excuses for because that's kind of her actions maybe a little before that had kind of led to that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I, as a competitor, never like to her scale. But as a competitor, I kind of get it. But unfortunately for her, her whole image was so accessible until it come time for her to be accessible. Then she always wasn't always very accessible.
Right.
And
Right. This is a real quick funny story. Her PR person, her rookie year at the Speedway, came up to me and goes, "Hey, would you like to meet Danica?" I go, "I don't think you know who I am. She's gonna have to wait in my line."
that's funny.
And they just looked at me. But it's just, hey, just a little quick, being
Right.
a goober.
Right. I will tell you that I've never had a problem with Danica. Um, her dad did run midgets. A lot of people don't know
Right.
that. TJ ran midgets up in the Badger Group up north and Wisconsin area and that, and so not that that excuses anything, but I was just like, I can't really badmouth. It isn't like she
Sure.
was this silver spoon kid like everybody thought.
No, she led the Indy 500 too. I've
That's
never
right.
done that.
And she won an IndyCar
Yep.
race too. And people can say, well, it was on
Yep.
strategy. Well, Rossi won on strategy too. You don't see people
That's
talking
true.
about that. You know.
Yep.
That's very true. You got to cross that finish line.
That's right. Any way you can.
Absolutely.
Well, Scotty, we're going to close this out, but you are coming back, and you are going to regale us in your history in this sport, and it will be an amazing group of stories. That'll probably be a 5-parter.
Okay. Hey, like I told the guys on the race team, hey, I'm just like a car lot. I charge $195 an hour.
Send it to Scott. He can afford
That's
it.
Okay.
But
I
hey,
only know.
there's one last question I wanted to ask
Okay.
you real quick.
Sure.
So obviously you've worked with a lot of drivers throughout the years. Is there something about Helio that you think kind of makes him different than other drivers? Maybe something that kind of gives him that winning strategy, or that if you know what I'm saying.
I think he's a fan, and it's just like, I mean, just the energy he has, and it's like, I can't say some of the things that I did because I made him curse and things like that. But anyway, I mean, he just is so electrifying, and he was real. He was very real, and it's like, I'd go, "Hey, how you doing?" And he threw that right back to me. "How you doing?" and just, it's just that he took time for everyone he possibly can. One thing that bothers me where people call a driver bad names because, well, he won't say hi to me, or he won't shake my hand, or he won't sign an autograph. I go, "Have you ever gone up to a football player the day of the Super Bowl? I think the guy'd kill you, a football player, if you got into his face, because they're in a different zone. Their life depends on this. Their job depends on this. And they're in a different world. And you don't bother people. There's many times that I'll say very little to a driver or won't look at them because I know they're focused. I remember Jack Harvey, his second year, the man was completely different because he was so focused on going out there and doing his job. And so, yep, it's just, but Helio, I mean, just seemed so calm and cool about everything. And
well, the funny part is too. The funny part about it is I think everybody thought Helio did Dancing with the Stars for himself, and I firmly believe that he did it for IndyCar.
Sure, I mean,
he did Wife Swap too.
Did he really?
Absolutely.
Yeah, he did Wife Swap. Yeah.
Did he really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's just
he might have done that for himself. I don't know about that one, but
yeah, that would be some great TV right there. Scott doing Wife Swap.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
but
I got my hands ready without throwing that variance in there.
But no, it's just that he's got a heck of a personality, and
he's genuine.
And he was on a mission.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people feel like you can't be that exuberant or you can't look at life like that because they don't look at life that way. And I think, and again, this is a man I don't know from the outside looking in. I think he has a extremely strong religious faith. I think he believes that all things are, I wouldn't say planned out, but all things are going to be what they're going to be because there's a grand plan for him. And I think he firmly believes that he was put on this earth to drive race cars and go as fast as he can. And he has, if that's what he was put on this earth to do, then he's going to have full belief that he can do that as good or better than anyone else who's ever done it.
Yep. When I had my picture taken with him yesterday, I go, hey, I want to thank you for what you did for us. We are a team. I wanted to thank you because you're the one that got that checkered flag. I appreciate very much the ring. His dreams come true. And God bless you. He goes, if it wasn't for God, we wouldn't be here. And I take that all in heart right there.
Hey, I do have one, because you are a super fan of the sport. Has a car ever won with a 0 in front of the number before? I don't think it has.
I don't think so. I don't think
think so either.
It has. And that might be a nice trivia question for Donald Davidson. But, I have to bring this up too. All the years they said green was bad luck in Gasoline Alley or in the pits at Indy. You didn't have green clothes on, whatever. And I told Donald one day, I go, no one's ever said this, but everyone had bad luck at Indy since 1914, but somebody had to win. He goes, well, what do you mean? I said, since 1914, the garages were painted green and white.
That's right.
And no one ever said anything about that. And because you had to put the car in the garage, so that means your car had bad luck, but somebody won the 500.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So it happened.
How did you feel the first time you had to wear that pink crew shirt?
I always loved drag racing, and Roland Leong came out many years ago with the first Dayglow colors that, just like Granatelli, his T-shirts were always a hot pink or hot yellow, and with the flowers and everything. And I wore those things, like when I'd go to see my parents, would wear them to the Texas State Fair, and everyone goes, I love your shirt. A lot of times I'll wear a pink bandana to keep the sweat out of my eyes, kind of like the guy that worked for Paul Newman in the movie Winning. And but I put that bandana on, and everyone says, I love your pink bandana, especially the women. It attracted the women. But so yeah, it's anything that's flashy and different. And working with Scotty Brayton when we had the Amway car, that car was beautiful, and Scotty's like, it's not pink, it's red. Nah, it's pink, buddy.
Yeah, no, I think it was definitely pink.
Yeah. So, I just, plus it goes good with my skin. You don't know if I'm burned up or not from the sun.
That's right.
Yeah, if only you could see Scott right now. He kind of looks like Rudolph.
Yeah, my nose is lit up, man.
I think I was with Michael Jackson at Burger Death, bobbing for apples in the deep fryer, my face. How pink it is.
Yeah, I was spotting for Shane Hollingsworth at the Little 500, and between that, being out in the sun there, and then being out in the sun on Sunday, I got used up pretty good by the sun. It may not have been hot, but man, that sun was out.
Absolutely, it was. It seemed a little toastier for some reason.
Yeah. Well, Scott, again, congratulations. Thank you so much for coming on our show. And we are going to have an epic conversation with you someday because you have some amazing stories.
And I follow all the politicians, so it's all true.
Right, that's right. That's right.
All right, sounds great.
Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome. Have a great evening, guys.